Hey guys, how you doing? I hope you're doing well. So this is the introduction for the hybrid course, just in case you missed that first time that we met. Um, so I'm Dr. Nanette K. Hartley. You can call me Nan. You can call me Professor. I don't really care which one you choose. I am your instructor for this course, and we will be meeting physically Monday and Wednesday nights from 6 to 9 p.m. That is for the lab portion of this course. Now, there are other parts of this class, so let's talk a little bit about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share with you my screen so we can look at D2L. So we'll look at D2L first. Now, within D2L, if we come into your shell, you'll see that this is what you see. If you've already done the acknowledgement activity, you'll see content when you click on the content. If you don't see this, you need to do the acknowledgement activity under quizzes. So you won't see any of that until you've done this, okay? Now, under the content, there are a couple of things I want to point out to you. So the first of which is there is material for the labs. So all of the paperwork that goes with the labs is in here. I will be giving you physical copies of this, but it's also here as well. And there's reasons that we need to talk about that. Because one, you don't have your paperwork for experiment 1, which is what we're doing on Monday. So we'll need to talk about that. The other thing I want to show you is that for each exam, there are 3 exams, there is material for that exam. Now, each lecture is numbered. So this is lecture 1. This is the one that was supposed to be done on the 18th. This is lecture 2. This is the one that's supposed to be done on the 20th. And all of that information can be found under in the schedule. So again, I have these scheduled on particular days. Now it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. It's entirely up to you when you do that. It really doesn't matter when you do it, okay? What I will tell you is that there is a quiz that goes with every lecture except for lecture 1. Those quizzes close the day that this was supposed to happen. So lecture 2, which has a quiz, is supposed to be done on the 20th of October. Its quiz will close on midnight of the 20th. So that's how that works. Now, those quizzes are designed to go with that particular lecture. So it covers the topics for that lecture and then a review from the lecture before. So that's all that that's about. Now, these quizzes do not count towards your grade. They're pass-fail. You either do them or you don't do them. If you do them, you get full credit. If you don't do them, you don't get any credit. If you don't do them, it can hurt your grade. If you do them, it might help a little bit. It doesn't help a lot, but it's only 1% of your grade. So it's not a ton. Mostly, these are feedback for you and for me. So if I give you a quiz that says, hey, I expect you can do this question based on what we've already talked about. If you can't do that question, then there's work that you need to do to be able to handle that question. Okay. Now, if nobody in the class can do that question, then that's something that I need to address. So that's where that information comes in. It's useful to both of us for that. So that's the deal with the quizzes. Now, as far as the content goes, those lectures, they are recorded. They are here. So all you have to do is open this up, and this will take you to a YouTube thing. You'll get to watch me talking about whatever this material is. So you have that. And there are sometimes other videos in here. There's a couple of them for this particular start. Significant figures. This is not technically a discussion we're having for this course, but it is something that you are expected to be able to deal with. So if you need review on significant digit figures or scientific notation or dimensional analysis, any of that stuff, that's all can be found in here. Okay. There's also another textbook that has some decent explanations just in case you ever want to look at it. All right. In addition to that, there are 3 recommended topics: scientific method, test taking, and problem solving. And this will talk to you about the thoughts that I have on those particular subjects. Okay. So there is some information about how you might be able to take tests better. I used to work for Kaplan in the Princeton Review, and we talked about how to take tests and approach that strategically. And then there's some discussion about problem solving and the way that I do that. You'll notice that in the lectures, I set things up exactly the same way every time. And that's because it helps my brain to start processing when I need to process. So that's why I do that. Okay. So you have the lecture. You will also have the PowerPoint that goes with that lecture, so you can see whatever's up there. You can write it out, print out, whatever, write all over it. I have students who do both. Some people do the electronic version and then make notes on that while I'm talking. Not a big deal. There is an in-class practice. Now, in-class practice is not necessarily my kind of question. This material is meant to help you get up to speed to be able to talk to Alex. Now, Alex is an external program that you need to be signed up for to do homework. Okay. So when we talk about Alex, bear with me just a minute. I'm sorry, it doesn't want me to do this in this role because I'm a teacher. So get back into D2L so I can remember what I was doing. And then get back into Alex and go into the student view there. So you should take that link to go into Alex. Now, when I come in here, I have a number of different things that I can see. I want to be in the student view to show you what you'll see. So in Alex, once you've done the introduction to the tooltips and you've taken the initial knowledge check, this is what you'll see. Now, that initial knowledge check is just information for you. It covers all of the material that is covered in general chemistry, so you won't know how to do most of it, and that's okay. That does not affect your grade. It is not a part of what we are going to be dealing with. When this is used in the adaptive fashion, it's helpful, but we don't use this way because it becomes problematic in the time frame that we're using. So once you've done all of that, this is what you'll see. You'll also be able to open this little thing over here, and you'll see that there are assignments as well as the textbook. So if you want to look at the textbook, this is how you get to it. All right. And I do recommend that you read the sections that go with what we're talking about. But you'll also see your assignments. Okay. And when you're in Alex or in D2L, I apologize. And you're in the content for that particular lecture. So measure, you'll see that there's a link here that should take you to Alex. So it looks a little different when you come into it than when I come into it, because I'm not in student view. So this takes me to a link where I see everything. But this is the unit that you're supposed to be working on. It gives you the opportunity to open that. Okay. So that will take you to anything that you need to see to be able to work on. Now, for the most part, all you have in here is homework. So you'll see that your assignments include homeworks. There are some quizzes that are here, virtual labs that are here, and then you'll see tests. Now, these tests are not actual tests. These are practice tests for each of the exams so that you can see what you might get asked. There are also in D2L some questions for each exam to see, okay, here's some questions that I might ask you. Now, I often take these questions verbatim from these practice sheets and put them directly on the test, or it may be a related question. So it may be that, here I ask you about a mixture of sand and baking soda can be separated out through only chemical means, and I might ask you about physical means instead of chemical means. So similar question, but something like that. The wording on the question may not be exactly the same, and so the answer may not be exactly the same. But those are the ways that you should prep for your tests. Now, the quizzes and the virtual labs that are in here, the labs are from the end part of the course. So your last 2 labs will be done virtually, not in person. Those are in here. And then there's a post lab that goes with that. That's that quiz. My recommendation is when you do this lab, you take notes about what you did, and you can put that in your lab notebook. Take notes about what you did, write down any calculations that you did and any explanations that you need for how to do that, and then go take the quiz. The quiz is not a quiz per se. It's open notes, it's open resources. I don't care what you use to do this. And you have multiple attempts. So you have 2 attempts on each quiz. There's an hour and a half timeline on each one. But it's important to me that you understand how to do it and that you can do it on your own. It's not important to me how you get to knowing how to do it. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. So that's what you'll see is all of the stuff that's in ALEKS. Okay. So ALEKS is important. You will have to do it. It is a 20% of your grade. So make sure that you've done it. Now, there are two parts of ALEKS that you need to be aware of. There is the ALEKS total grade, and that's the average of all things that you did in ALEKS. That's what's going to be calculated. It is not calculated in ALEKS. I calculate. So it's the average of the assignments that I gave you. So if you scored 100% on everything, then you get 100%. If you manage to get an average of 83, then you get 83 out of it. The other thing that you'll see is the trying to remember exactly what the wording is. Oh, your pi progress. Now your pi progress is a 10-point score. All that reflects is how much of the work that you were assigned did you do. So if you did 90% of the work, then you get a 9 on that. Your ALEKS total grade is out of 100. And that's the average of everything that you did in there. Okay. So those are the scores that go with the ALEKS part. So I've talked about the lecture part. Now let's talk about the lab part. Okay. So since you weren't in the lab, one thing that you don't have yet, and you will have to do when you come to see me, is this thing right here. These are the lab safety rules, and these are actually available in the lab manual. So if you come into content, the course documents, stuff here. This is the sheet that you'll be signing. And so you have to acknowledge that you have to wear goggles in the lab. Now we have goggles you can borrow. So if you're comfortable with that, that's fine. If you would rather have your own, you can buy them pretty much anywhere. Home Depot has them, Lowe's has them, Amazon has them. It's entirely up to you what you do, but you need to make sure that you're wearing eyewear. Now, if you have glasses, you need to have something that goes over your glasses. Unless your glasses have side shields, you need to have something else. Okay, so you need to make sure that you've got that. Now, here's the deal with the eyewear. As soon as we go into, because we normal, 2 seconds. I have office hours 5 to 6 p.m. Monday and Wednesday. Those happen in the 700 building on the 3rd floor. So our lab is 314. My office hours are held on 307A, which is across the hall and up a bit. All right. So my office hours will be in there. We always start the labs in room 301, which has a whiteboard. It's, we can sit down and talk as opposed to trying to yell over the stuff in the lab. So we'll start in 301. That means that when we go into the lab, people are ready to work. And so you'll need to put your goggles on at that time. If you don't put your goggles on, or if you put them on and then do this number with them, you will get spoken to. Now, the first time it's a warning. The second time that I see it in the same day, you get asked to leave for the day. If you come back and it happens again, you'll be asked to leave that lab permanently. Okay? Understand that being asked to leave that lab permanently is something that does appear as academic misconduct on your permanent record. So be aware of that. Okay? I don't play with the safety of your eyes. Okay. And one of the other things that I need to talk about when we talk about eyes, I cannot prevent you from wearing contacts. You can't. Be aware that there are chemicals that we work with that will concentrate. They get up underneath your contacts, between your contacts and your eye, and they can concentrate there. That can lead to permanent fusion of your contact with your eye. It can also lead to loss of sight. You accept that risk if you choose to wear contacts in the lab. There's nothing I can do about that. So that's the eyewear, that's contacts. You need to make sure that you're wearing appropriate clothing. That does mean pants. We do expect that you're wearing pants in the lab. That's usually not a problem. Wintertime, but in the summer it can be a pain. You need to be careful with really long sleeves because they can knock things over. We also will occasionally ask you to tie your hair back. So if we're working with Bunsen burners, you'll be asked to tie your hair back. okay, if you have long hair. That's to prevent you from being on fire. We do have some safety things in the laboratory. So there are fire extinguishers. If you're not trained to use a fire extinguisher and one needs to be used, please tell me it needs to be used and I will take care of it. If you catch on fire, we have a fire blanket that we can use to put you out. We do have an eye wash station. So if you get chemicals in your eye, you can use the eye wash station. The thing with the eye wash station is if you actually need it, you are not going to be able to find it on your own. You won't be able to see. So you will need to ask for help to get to it. That is fine. I am more than happy to help with getting you there and showing you how to use it because you've never been trained to do that either. The last thing I have to talk about, and it is really important that we do talk about this, is the safety shower. So there is a safety shower in the lab. There is a reason for that. If you get chemicals on you in a significant way, i.e. more than like 20% of your body is covered with chemicals, then we have to get you in the safety shower to save your life. It's that simple. When we put you in a safety shower, it's because you and your clothing have been saturated with chemicals. So we have to get your clothing off. That is not pleasant. I do not enjoy doing it, and I have had to do it, not only to another student, but to myself in front of my students. So you will have to be stripped. In the event that that happens, there'll be a bunch of paperwork you have to file, and you'll get the fire blanket to put around you while we do that. Okay. So that is something that will happen. In the event that somebody has to go in the safety shower, you will be asked to exit the room so that there's a little privacy for that. You'll also notice that there is no drain for that safety shower. And again, there are going to be chemicals in that water. So we need to get that cleaned up. That's another reason that you need to get out so that you are not at risk of having that come in contact with you. Good housekeeping, I won't dock you for not doing good housekeeping. I won't. If you want to leave stuff a mess and not labeled and whatever, that's entirely up to you. I will tell you that that is a really bad idea. And the reason that I say that is that if you're ever inspected by OSHA and you have a beaker that has chemicals in it that has not been labeled, it is $10,000 per incident per day. So if you have 4 beakers containing chemicals, whether they're water or not, and they're not labeled, that's 40 grand. Some companies, and I used to work for one, charge that to the person who is responsible. So I had a bill that I had to pay for that. So it's not a joke. So there is something to be said for that. The big reason that we want things labeled is not so you don't screw them up, although there is that, but it's so if something happens and there's a fire in that room and the firemen have to come in, they know what's in that beaker. It's important that they know, okay? So you need to know where the safety equipment is. I will show you where everything is when we get into the lab. Only authorized experiments. If you do an unauthorized experiment, that is expulsion from the laboratory. That is also considered academic misconduct. So you are putting everybody in danger by doing that. So don't test them. No one's allowed in the lab without me being in there. Occasionally, I am a type 1 diabetic. I will have to step outside to get something to eat because I can't eat in the laboratory, or just take a drink of my soda because I can't go 3 hours without having something to drink. So that is not a big deal. I may, every once in a while, may decide to go to the bathroom. And if so, I will say, hey, look, please try not to kill yourself while I'm in the bathroom, because that is the thing. There is a lab next door to us, so typically I can walk out for a minute and it won't be a huge deal. If you need help, you can scream and Jaime can come and help, okay? But you're not supposed to be in there without. Last thing I have to talk about, we cannot have children or animals in the lab. Now, if you have an ADA approved animal, service dog for blind people, deaf people, lots of different things. And I had one as a type 1 diabetic. I had a service dog. That is allowed. Emotional support animals are not ADA approved, so that is not allowed. We also can't have kids in the lab. So in the event that something comes up and you have kids that need to be where you are and you're supposed to be in lab, we can't have them in the lab. So let me know. We'll make arrangements to take care of that, because I know how hard that can be. I've had situations where my childcare got canceled, and what am I supposed to do? But we will work with you, okay? But we cannot have them. So No eating, no drinking, no smoking, no vaping, no gum in the lab. Reason for all of that is the same. Okay, smoking can cause a fire. The vaping is dangerous to use, so I'm not going to let you do it. That's just my opinion, and take it for what you want. Eating, drinking, and gum chewing in the lab can be exceptionally dangerous because it can pick up the chemicals that are in the room. Even if you don't see them, they're in the air, and it can pick that up and you can ingest it. That's very bad. Okay, so you'll see that I have beverages that I store outside. If you have a water bottle, I would not recommend storing it in the lab. I just wouldn't. Again, it can pick up stuff even if you're not handling it inappropriately. It can pick up things, and then that gets transferred to you. So we prefer that not happen. Gum can also pick up and concentrate chemicals. So none in the lab, none. Okay. So that's everything from the safety rules. And again, I will have to have that from you. Otherwise, I cannot allow you to work in the lab. If you will not sign this, that is a potential lawsuit. And so we have to make sure that you have this signed. As far as the lab itself goes, i.e., what are we going to be doing in the lab? Well, what we're going to be doing is all paperwork that is here. Okay, so these are all the labs that you'll actually physically be doing. Now, Lab 9 is one of the virtual labs, but there is some paperwork that I want you to look at that goes with that when we do it physically. The colligative properties, we don't have anything for that. So the last, we don't have anything for that. But the rest of these, there is paperwork that goes with it. And what you'll see in this paperwork is that there's information about this lab. The objective that needs to go in your lab notebook is right here. Okay, so your lab notebook, which should be a composition book, probably will not have numbered pages. You need to number the pages. Doesn't matter where you put it. I don't care if it's top, bottom, whatever. I don't care. Your lab notebook needs to include the number and the name of the lab, the objective, any materials that you need so that you can get them all collected, and then any steps that you need to take in the lab to do this. Now, you'll find those steps when you read through all of this. You'll get to a section that says procedure. And this is what you actually need to do in the lab. Okay. Now, when you look at my lab notebook example, because there's a notebook format document, and there is a copy of a lab notebook in here that I prepared for this course. So here's my table of contents, which you need to show me when you send me pictures of your lab, because I need to see your lab notebook sometimes when I grade. So you'll need to send me pictures of your lab. I don't care what format they're in, as long as I can open them. But what you'll see is that you'll need to make sure that you have those materials. You need materials there. Of course, I show that this is a triple beam balance. There are some other things because I did, when I was doing this, I didn't know what triple beam balance looked like. So I included a picture. Anything that I include as a picture needs to be signed over and dated. And that's because we need to know if something's been taken out. So if I've signed over the edge of it, then part of my signature will be missing when I take that. Okay. So that's what that purpose is. So your objective, the materials, and the steps that you're going to have to take to do this lab. And the other thing I need to see is, and here's my procedure. We're going to take mass volumes for these things, and then here's the data that I'm going to collect for that. Well, I need to know what balance I used, who the first person was, second person. So here's all the data tables. So in your lab, what you'll see is that as you go through this, not only are there steps for what you need to do in the procedure, turn the mass of the object indirectly, things that you need to do, not do. So there. And then there will be a page that has tables. So these are the tables that need to be in your lab notebook to collect this data. I expect these tables to be filled out. Okay. There are also some pre-lab questions. So these are things that you should be doing before you get to lab. Right? Make sure that you've answered all of these questions. Right? You're not going to turn it in until after the lab. So if you don't do it before the lab, that's kind of something I'm not going to check. But these are things that you should have thought about before you come to lab. Okay. Yes, so that's everything that needs to be in your lab notebook. Now this process data, conclusions, anything that comes after the lab itself does not need to be in your lab notebook. And one other thing while we're talking about the lab notebook. Under absolutely no circumstances should you be writing in that lab notebook in anything that can be erased, be that pencil or erasable pen. It needs to be pen, preferably blue, because then I can tell if it's a photocopier. So it needs to be written in pen. Now, the other thing I'm going to tell you about the notebook format, things that need to happen. When I'm writing in my lab notebook and I make a mistake, I write a single line through it, initial it, and date it. That's what you do anytime you make a mistake. One line. I do not want it obliterated. It needs to be visible, and I need to be able to read what's underneath it. Okay? That's necessary. It's a legal document, so that's required. Okay? Any empty space needs to be crossed out, initialed, and dated. Okay? So that is necessary as well. Now you'll see that there's a section here for signature and date, analyst encounters. I will be signing off on your notebook before you go to the lab to ensure that you've done the pre-lab, i.e. that you've got your materials, that you're ready to go to lab. You're prepared. If you're not prepared, you're a danger to you and to me. So I don't want you in the lab. If you have not done the preparation before the lab, you will be forced to do it before you can come in. I'll put you behind everybody else and you'll have to work alone. So, because typically we work in pairs or in groups. At the end of the lab, I need to sign off on your lab. You should sign it too. That's a good habit to be in, but I need to sign off on it. What that's for is because it's a legal document. So we need to know when the data was taken. And so, and because if it was just you, you could fake those dates. You need to have somebody else sign off on it, and those dates should match. So they should be the same day. And we don't back sign things. So if you bring it to me on Thursday, I'm not going to sign it for Monday. So that's why that's done. Okay, so that's everything about the lab notebook that we need to talk about. The expectation for Monday is that you will have your lab notebook set up to take data for experiment 1. Okay, so you will have read through all of this. You'll have your experiment name and number, the objective, the materials that you need, and then the steps, and your data table set. And we'll then sign off. We'll go to the lab. You'll collect all of your data after we've had a discussion about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And then you will be done for the day. You can leave. Okay? So that is the expectation. Your labs are due the following week on Wednesday. So even though we do lab Monday and Wednesday, all labs are due on Wednesday. They are turned into D2L. And we'll see under the assignments that there's a drop box for each experiment. Okay, and that is something that you need to turn in. You get a grade for that, it will be assigned there. And that is a grade for not only the experiment itself, but also for the post-lab. So that paperwork together will be used to assess both of those things. Okay. The only other thing you need to turn in to me is your scratch paper for the tests, because you take your tests online. I need to see your scratch paper so that I can grade for partial credit. Okay. Make sure that you are actually using scratch paper and that you turn it in. Okay, so I think that's everything. I don't think there's anything else I needed to talk to you about. Oh, wait, there are a couple of assignments that you need to have done before the 24th. So the first thing is you need to get signed into Alex. If you haven't signed into to Alex by the 24th, then I have to drop you from the class. It's required. There are some initial assignments that you have to do. So there's the acknowledgement activity, which gets you access to the rest of the content. There's a scavenger hunt exercise, which is the first graded assignment that you have. And it's to familiarize you with all of the paperwork and my policies, all of that stuff. There's the lockdown browser test, because it needs to be done before you take your first test. So I need to make sure that you can actually use the lockdown browser. You are required to have a computer that can handle the lockdown browser. If you don't, you need to get your hands on one that you can use for those tests. Okay, and if you have a problem with that, talk to me about it, because there's some things that we can do about that. But if you can't use the lockdown browser, we are going to have to either send you to the testing center, or you're going to have to sit with someone while they proctor your test. Because we don't do unproctored tests. It's just not something we do. The other thing, the last thing, is you need to come into the discussions, and you need to do your introduction discussion while you're in here. Okay, so that needs to be done as well. I will start hounding you to make sure that you have done those things. And I think I have already sent emails about getting those things done to make sure that you are doing it. So there's some easy points there that can help with your grade in the event that you need it. The only other thing I want to talk about is there are places on your test where you can earn bonus points. So each test will have the ability to earn 10 bonus points. You can carry those over. So if you get more than 100%, you can have those points to keep for the final. But that is the only place that you will ever be offered any extra credit, ever. Do not come to me and ask for additional work. I cannot give it to you. It is department policy. Okay? So that's the way we handle it. And I think that's everything. If I forgot anything, hopefully I'll remember and I'll tell you eventually. But if you have any questions, comments, problems, please let me know. And I will see you guys next week. Make sure that you've got all your stuff done. Thanks. Bye.